Hello and welcome to Jagaad public technical interview for the position of a junior PHP developer, guys. Today I'll be your host and I'll be guiding you through this interview process. Before we dive in, let me give you a brief overview of Jagaad and the IT market in general. Today, first of all, we have today two guests. First, Mehmet. He's a senior PHP developer with over 10 years of experience in various domains and technology stacks from Turkey. And second, Raul, our graduate from Jagaad Academy. Hello, guys.
Hey,
hello.
So for those who don't know who we are, let's start with a quick introduction of Jagaad. To start with, we are an Italian digital company specializing in cloud-based software development. We have worked in the industries such as e-commerce, travel, energy, and AI. We are fully remote and officeless. Our team is 40 people at the moment, is global and localized in about 10 countries. It's Italy, Portugal, Moldova, Cameroon, Nigeria, India, Egypt, Ukraine, and Turkey. Also, now that you know a bit about Jagaad, let's discuss the current state of the IT market, specifically in the European and MENA regions. According to recent reports from industry sources such as Eurostat and MENA research partners, the demand for PHP developers in these regions remains strong. PHP continues to be a popular programming language for web development, offering flexibility, scalability, and large developers community. In European and the MENA region, there are excellent prospects for individuals who pursue PHP courses and enter the field as a junior developer. When it comes to salaries, on average, junior PHP developer in Europe and the MENA region can expect a starting salary from 7k euros to 15k euros per year. These figures are based on reports from reputable sources such as PayScale, and Glassdoor. And now, when we have an idea of the market and salary statistics, let's move on to the interview process. So, the interview will consist of 3 stages. The first one is a technical interview stage, code review stage, and feedback after the interview. So, technical interview stage, Mehmet will ask Raul a series of technical questions related to PHP development. Raul, you can ask any questions, clarifying if needed.
Okay.
The stage is designed to assess your knowledge and problem-solving abilities as a junior-level developer. Next stage, it's a code review stage. We will review your GitHub repos and share feedbacks, ideas for improvement. This stage allows us to evaluate your understanding of best practices, code readability, and your ability to identify potential improvements. And the final stage, where we share feedback, you will ask your questions, we will share our feedback with your performance, improvement, and understand your strengths and weaknesses. Now that we have a clear understanding of the interview stages, let's proceed with the first stage, the technical interview. Yeah, are you ready, guys? Raul, Mehmet?
Sure.
Yes.
Let's
Okay,
see.
let's dive and have some fun. Mehmet, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm working as a senior software engineer who had 10 years of experience with mostly PHP and some other languages too. So welcome, Raul. So here we will have some good questions to ask and answer. So I believe you will do your best, and I wish you luck, first of all.
We'll sure do. Thank you very much, Mehmet.
Yes. So if you allow me, I will dive into the questions. Yes. So the first question that I would like to ask, let me first explain my strategy about the questions, and then we will understand each other better, I guess. So I will ask a question, then I will dive into the details. So, for example, example, when I ask for loops, then I will ask more detailed questions about it. So please feel free to say, I don't know, or even you can answer what you know. I will make it harder and harder and harder. That doesn't mean you are not a good developer. It doesn't mean anything like that. So the first question that I would like to ask, what type of language is PHP? What is the technical interview of PHP? Can you explain how you see PHP and what kind of technology is this?
Well, as far as I know and learned, PHP is an acronym for Hypertext Preprocessor. It's a widely used open source general purpose scripting language that's used on the backend of web development side.
And which PHP versions did you have any chance to use?
I started using from the PHP version 8, if I'm not mistaken, 8.1 that was presented, and all along until PHP 8.2.
Okay, so do you have anything about what is the difference between older versions of PHP and the newest one?
What is in my mind that I always have it figured is about in PHP 8.2, if I'm not mistaken, they introduced the read-only attributes and classes that are presented in with the new releases. That's what all the time I had the time to read about it.
Yes, and what is the read-only attributes? And what is the purpose of having a read-only attribute on a class or anything?
So for example, we can define an attribute for a class to be either public, private, protected, and now with the new feature read-only. With the read-only attribute, it is not subjected to change. It's only readable, the attribute itself.
Can you give a real-world example of having this?
Sadly, I didn't work with only read-only attributes, only private and public.
Okay, cool. And do you know what is trait?
If I'm not mistaken, I worked with traits in my previous projects, and it's a service that you can define. For example, how I applied in my project. A trait to be consisted by a JSON response format, where I applied all the arguments requested for a JSON response. For example, a message, a mixed message, a status code, and the response itself, and defined it as a DTO.
Okay. So including your explanations, traits are for multi-inheritance. So do you know what multi-inheritance mean, or what is inheritance?
If I'm not mistaken, we discussed about inheritance. I remember that I learned about inheritance, but from previous teachings, I think inheritance, if I'm not mistaken, was it inheritance? I think.
Yeah, okay, we can skip if you want.
Maybe I will remember in time, because I know I have an idea about it, but do not know how to formulate it.
Okay. So we can skip. If you remember, please tell me. And I would like to have questions about OOP. So I believe it is a really big and important topic to discuss. And what do you know about OOP? What is it? Can I eat it or?
About OOP, object-oriented programming, is a really interesting topic indeed. I myself is inclining more on OOP rather than procedural programming, because it lets you work around classes, attributes, methods, and it's even better defined. In my opinion, for the eye, it's even better defined, and it looks even better in either text editor or IDE. And it gives a wide approach. For example, if I can jump from a subject to another, we have the connection to the database as PDO that is also object-oriented approach instead of the normal usage of MySQL connection to the database.
Okay, so I have a weird question. So as you mentioned earlier, sometimes you are saying method and sometimes you are saying function. What is the difference between method and function?
Between method and function, I think this is the correct approach to say. But yes, both are, there can be, for example, functions, user-defined functions and built-in functions, while methods, if I'm not mistaken, are user-defined. They are accepting, even as the functions, they accept arguments to be injected. And if I'm not mistaken, a difference between functions and methods is that I don't know if it's a PHP is not having, or it's having, I might say
Let me give you a tip, quick tip. I believe methods are inside the objects.
Yes, inside a class, inside an object, there is a method, yes.
Yes, yes. This is the main difference between two of them. So I believe there is only one more thing, maybe two things to discuss. The abstraction and polymorphism. Do you know what are they, or did you heard them?
Yes, I heard in my studies. Pause for a little bit. Is it okay if I'm going to say all the time, like in my studies, in my lessons, in my course? Is this also related to the course? That's people
fine.
from the outside will know that's what I learned from the Jagaad Academy. So it's okay if I say.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, perfect. Let's continue. So polymorphism, as it implies, as I studied, it means that it has many forms. If I'm not mistaken, polymorphism and then abstraction, that the full logic is abstracted. It's not, the end user will not know about how the app or how the full process was built. He will only have the end product on how it is used. That's a abstraction topic, that how it was summarized. All the logic to be abstracted, hidden from the end user. And related to polymorphism, it has many forms, but in time, if it's possible, if I can remember even more about it to explain.
Yeah, sure. And I would like to understand the difference between each other, if exists. So let me give you an example. Then please point which one is polymorphism or abstraction. So let's say I have a ball, and I have 3 balls. The first one is white ball, second one is red ball, and I have a parent ball, let's say object. Those are objects, and their names are ball, red ball, and white ball. So what do you think? Is this a explanation or an example of polymorphism or abstraction?
In this case, as you have the main object, the main factory, the ball that makes other balls, red, blue, yellow, etc., then this means that it will be, if I'm not mistaken, polymorphism, because it is being, not polymorphed, it's being, how to say it?
Yeah, let me change the example. The colors may confuse your mind. So let's say we have an object, we have a class named plane, or let's say plane, and we have a subclass that named fighter plane or something like that. I'm not sure what is the correct name of that. And the normal plane, like, you know,
passenger plane.
Passenger. Yeah, exactly. So we have a parent named plane, and we have subclasses that is that will change the behavior of the parent class. So as you said, this is more likely polymorphism or abstraction.
This, in my opinion, is much more polymorphism.
Yeah, okay, cool.
And if I may rewind, you asked about inheritance, right?
Yes.
Now, if this is correct, with the plane, I had an idea. So we first have the parent animal. And from animal, we can extend, for example, dog that inherits animal that has some behaviors. A dog can walk, a dog can eat, a dog can bark. Then we have a cat that also inherits from the animal parent class, but has different attributes. It can meow, it can walk, it can eat. So this is how I understand inheritance. It's a parent class that has subclasses like dog, fish, cat. It inherits the parent class.
Yes. And as in your example, this is the polymorphism. The inheritance defines the main functions, main behavior, and the subclasses are changing the main behavior. So dog can bark or cat can meow, but the method, the function is same. Say something, the dog will be bark and the cat will meow. So our next topic that I would like to discuss is database systems. There is a main, I believe, 2 different database solution exists. For example, yeah, let me first ask you, which databases did you use or did you know?
From my studies, the only database that we worked on was the relational database. I know about another database that's a NoSQL database with no relations. We didn't go that much in depth, but this is for what I know as from the course.
Okay, do you know what is the difference between NoSQL and the relational database?
If I'm not mistaken, the relational database can have many relations between whatever you define. Like, for example, we have a student that can have attributes. Then we have a classroom that specific student can have a relation with the classroom. A relation can be one-to-many, many-to-one, one-to-one, many-to-many, and so on. While the non-relational database, it is not having any relation, as far as I know, between objects like this, like a student, classroom, and so on.
Okay, but in NoSQL solutions like MongoDB or Cassandra or something like that, there is a main difference between you are saying the difference, but I believe you will catch what I mean. There's a main difference.
So I'm missing something.
Yes, just one thing. I believe you will remember. Relational and non-relational, as their names, there is no relation exists in NoSQL. Of course, at some point, there are some solutions for creating relations, but this is not the best practice for using NoSQL solutions. But for MySQL or MariaDB or any relational database, you have to create connections between tables. So what I would like to ask is, we said we are creating relations. So there is a word that we are using for creating relations. So there are a couple of keys exist. For example, let me give you a quick tip. The first one is unique key. And there are 3 keys exist. There are 2 more keys exist. What are they?
There is a primary key and foreign key.
Okay, so what is primary key?
So the primary key, if I'm not mistaken, is in some particular cases on our studies, we have set the primary key to be, for example, a ID or UUID that can never be the same. It's unique. As for the foreign keys, in general cases, a foreign key helps create the relation between a table to another. The foreign key, for example, so we have the primary key in students. Then we have a classroom. Foreign key will be placed in the classroom that will connect. There will be a field, like for example, student ID, that will reference the ID, the primary key, from the student table.
Okay. So let's say we have student table and we have book table and we have student book table. So what type of relation should we have between these 3 tables? Okay, we should have foreign keys, but what type of relation should it be? One-to-one, many-to-one, or many-to-many? What it should be?
In this case, if we have another table like students' books, in this particular case, this third table is created to reference both tables. So in this case, we will have a many-to-many relation.
Yes. So what is the difference between many-to-many and one-to-many? Or what does one mean and what does many mean?
So in this case, let's take it from the beginning, one-to-many. So in this case, one student can have many books. We can relate the book many books to that respective student. And in the many-to-many scenarios, there can be many students which have many books.
Yes, exactly. So let's talk about the queries. What type of queries do you know?
Queries more related as the SQL programming language, or queries like, I don't know.
Select, update.
So that sort of queries. There can be, for example, to select all from a table.
No. I mean, how many of them exist? How many of them that we are usually working on? Select, update.
Oh,
CRUD operations.
yes. So we have the create query that can create, read query that can read either all or by ID, for example, update query, and delete query.
Yes. This is what I was asking. Thank you. So what do you think about how can I fetch two different columns from two different tables? How can I select them? Which statement should I use?
To select all from a column, or what do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, how can I, let's say, as we discussed, let's say we have students and we have books and we have student books. I would like to fetch the student name and his books at the same time using one single query. How can I do that?
If I'm not mistaken, for a single purpose, there should have been, for example, if you mentioned to select the name of a student and the respective book, there is a query to select student name, let's have the field, student name, from students, where student name is equal to student name and book is equal to book. That's if we have the same field inside the student table.
Okay, but I believe I couldn't able to explain correctly what I was asking. So actually, I was asking about joins.
About joins. Yes, so about joins. If it's related to join, there can be what I learned. There is a left join, right join, inner join, and if I'm not mistaken, outer join. What I worked on a lot were the either left, either right joins. So in this case, what a left join does, it will return all the records from the left table if we are having, for example, students. And then it will also return the matching records from the right table. And the result is going to be 0 from the right side if there will be no match. So for example, we have, I don't know, select a column name. What column it was requested? The student name?
Student name and book name.
So we have, for example, select student name from the students table. We are going to left join the table 2 from books, left join books, for example, on table 1, that's going to be the students table. And we can also set an alias for it. Instead of having student's name, we can have, left join book, books on students dot, let's see, student's name as SN. So if we will have further queries, it won't get that messy. We can have aliases and then equals to the second table, the respective column name, book name, for example.
Okay, and in my first question, as I said, I would like to have the student name and the book name. And let's make these tables a little bit messy. So let's say I have some books that doesn't have, for example, a category ID or something like that. And I would like to, or let's change the question. I would like to fetch students that doesn't have any book. How can I do that using select?
So using select to fetch students that do not have any books, or so only the students that don't have books?
Yeah, they are same, I believe. Let me give you a quick tip. This question is not about relations. I mean, not exactly joins. Maybe you can group, you can count the books.
I'm having something in mind.
Tell me.
If we will come back to this later?
Yeah, okay. Let's skip
I have something in mind, but I need to think on how to phrase it.
Okay. Let's skip to some fundamentals of the web. I would like to ask first, what is HTTP?
HTTP is a protocol used to communicate with the server side.
Okay, so what is TCP? Do you know what is TCP or UDP?
TCP or UDP? Sadly, no. Sadly.
Okay, so do you know how HTTP is working? Basically, not with too much details or what. Just basically, do you know how HTTP is working? Let me give you a quick tip. So TCP, actually HTTP is top of TCP. TCP is the main protocol of HTTP, and actually we are using TCP while we are using HTTP. So do you know how basically it is working?
So if I'm not mistaken, we are having the HTTP with the URL. We are sending the request to the server side. It's going to be processed. And then after processing what we asked, it will render in as a form as an HTML. It will be rendered as an interface what we requested from the server side. It will be sent back to us to display.
Okay, do you know what are HTTP headers?
HTTP headers? I think I know, because I have in my mind what I do not know if it's correct, the answer, but a HTTP header is something similar to a header like a redirect.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, something like that. For example, we are having a, if I can go more in detail, we have a controller, and at the end, we are going to use the PHP function to header to a location, like location being index.html. After completing that controller, the header will act as a redirect to the index page.
Yes, that's correct. And how the server is sending this information to client? I'm wondering the answer.
For example, this is being sent to the client via the post method. The post method.
Okay, but I believe you know that, but I'm not getting the words that I want from you. So what I mean is, let's say I have a method works on get index page, let's say. I have a header that I configured from server side, and I will send this header to client. And so as HTTP is top of TCP, actually this is basically a text, the headers and the body. And how the internet browsers are understanding which one is header, which one is body?
Via a form.
The what?
Via a form.
Via form. What do you mean by form?
For example, we are sending to a client. A client opens a page, and he is going to want to search for something. That page or that request is being sent to the server side via a form.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Okay, let's skip that question. Actually, the answer that I was looking for is, as I said earlier, the headers and the body is basically text.
Yes.
And when you send a request to server, actually it is sending the headers first, and there are, as I remember, 8 line breaks and then the body. But you are not saying the headers first. You are just saying the body because the browser is splitting without asking you. So when you click the inspect, and then when you click the, for example, let's say a request, you will see headers are splitted from the body. So actually, this is what I was asking, and I believe you know that. And okay, the second one, as you said, there is a header redirect. So let's say I would like to redirect somebody to some page. Which status code should I send the client?
So for the redirected, I think now it depends. If I'm not mistaken, the majority of status codes that are being used for, I don't know, maybe also for displaying from the database like a list, reading from the database all the things that you have, like all the users. We are using the status code 200. That being okay. If I'm not mistaken, or if I know correctly, if there is a redirect, does this mean that also if the redirect is okay, we can show to the client the okay message in the inspect, or there is another status code? Because if I remember, we didn't went, or it was vague status code for redirect. I really cannot remember. But I know the okay to be your request is okay, you are being redirected, but for the user, it will be shown in the logs 200. That's being okay if there is a correct request to a correct answer, to a correct URL.
Okay. So as you said, 200 or 202 or 204 are for okay status. So I believe there are 300 status codes, 400 and 500 status codes are also exist. Do you know what is the difference between these numbers, these codes? What is 500, for example?
For example, 500 is internal error, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
For
So yes, 500 is for exceptions.
exceptions.
Yeah, internal error exceptions. It's also okay. And what are the 400 error codes for? Generally, not specifically.
So I need to think about this for it, if 404 is.
Maybe let's say I would like to give the client authorization error. Which status code should I give the client?
For authorization, if, for example, it's not authorized or something like that, or so if not,
Yes.
not authorized.
400 and
404. Or that one is not found. Not found.
Yes.
404.
Yes, was not found. I believe it should be 3. What do you think?
403 not authorized.
Yeah, you remember.
In that.
I know that face. Okay. So as we are discussing HTTP status codes, headers, or the body, I believe some programs are managing the processes. As you know, there are a couple of web servers exist. Let me give you a quick tip first. For example, I was using Apache for a long time, but I stopped using it. Do you know any alternative for Apache? Or what is Apache?
Apache, for example, is, as you mentioned, a web host. No, not, wait, let me start to refresh my mind. So local host, we are using the local host to phpMyAdmin, for example, to use to see in the course to open locally a server.
Okay.
It's not quite a server, a web server more exactly, where you can access the how to formulate it, because it's not okay like this, I know. So you mentioned that you used Apache. I think the same is going to be Nginx, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay.
So what is Nginx? Can I eat it?
No. Let me see, because I had this question also, and if I remember correctly, I was stuck in this also. So we are using the local host in our local development process, correct?
Yes.
If you don't,
let me give you a tip. What is PHP FPM and what is the relation between PHP FPM and Nginx? This may make you remember what is the difference.
I can relate from some lessons that using Docker, for example, we had to configure PHP FPN to run locally a database, for example, inside a Dockerized container, like MySQL, let's say, MySQL.
Yes, but it was not about databases. Databases are...
Yes, I know.
But you are right. We are also using databases inside Docker. If you want, we can skip that.
I think we can skip for now, yeah. I need to remember.
Okay. If you remember anything, please let me know.
Okay.
And I have just 3 questions, I believe, exist or left. So what do you know about Git?
Git is a version control that helps you version your code and your projects.
Okay. So what is the purpose of using Git, and what are the capabilities that Git have?
The capabilities is to push your code, to version your code, to push it on GitHub, GitLab, depending on the platform that you are using where you're hosting your projects.
Okay, so let's say I'm a developer, and actually let's say we are 3 developers, and I changed the file named a.php, and at the same time you also changed the same file, and then we tried to merge this code into our master, and then we have conflict. So how do you solve this conflict? Which commands, which Git commands will you do for merging and for solving the conflict?
So let's say if you are using this, at first, it's known that we are going to work on different branches, not on the master branch. So there won't be any issues. If I'm not mistaken, for conflicts, there is a command that's used, rebase, if I'm not mistaken, one of the commands. But in general, if I can come with a question to your question, if developers or free developers are working on different branches, for example, to avoid the conflict, isn't this the situation for pull requests to be reviewed by the owner of that repository maybe, and then if they will find in that pull request in the code that there can be any conflicts to be treated before merging?
Yes, but let's say somehow it happened. And then we would like to solve the conflict. I merged my code into master, and then you have a conflict. So how will you solve that? This is basically...
Think for a little bit.
Do you know what is the difference between merge and rebase? Why we are using merge and rebase? Actually, merge or, not and. Merge or rebase.
Sadly, no, I never had the chance to use yet merge or rebase.
Okay, do you know what Git history is?
Git history, I think it's showing all the previous
commits.
Commits, yes. Or is that git log? Is it working the same as git log?
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
it's the same as git log. Okay.
Okay. So let's finalize this session after last questions. So as we discussed about PHP databases, the Git, the HTTP, and the last topic that I would like to dive in is the system architectures. So do you know any design pattern or any principle or anything about system architecture?
Okay, so I know that there is a solid principle. Okay. I know some of them, like I know there is a don't repeat yourself to keep your code clean. There is, I think, the D1. It's from my remembering. I know it's something that's not open to, but it's open to change. I need to remember that closely. That's one of the principles. And related to design patterns, yes, also in some of my projects, I'm using MVC design pattern, model view controller. I'm using factory pattern to create a factory from which the rest are being created, the repository pattern.
Okay, these are enough for me. As you mentioned, MVC.
Yes.
What is model, what is view, and controller? And do you know anything similar to MVC?
There is something similar. Let me remember. I know it's something with domain. I know it's something with domain because I had this
Action domain.
AD action domain, and yes, exactly that one.
Responded.
Yes, that one. If I'm not mistaken, I'm using that in a project. I was said, but by someone. I mentioned MVC, but it's something similar as the other approach. Model view controller. If I'm not mistaken, the controllers are responsible for the CRUD, a create controller, a view read controller, update, delete controller. The view is the part of the HTML what the client sees. There we put all the HTML. And if I'm not mistaken, the model is the entity.
Yes, okay. And what is entity?
The entity, for example, as we had, is we had the student entity, for example. It's I had it now.
What does it represent?
What does it represent? What more exactly? Can you extend so I can understand?
If I extend, I will give you the answer.
So we're having the entity that being
So let's say I fetched the first student.
Yes.
So, and it has name column, and the student ID or school or whatever. So when I fetch this row,
yes.
Let's say, how can I fetch this row, and how can I access to student's number inside the entity, as you mentioned?
Can you please repeat the last part? How do you fetch it? You said.
Yes. I want to access to student's name, the first student's name. So how can I do that? Do you know what is hydration?
Hydration? Sadly, no.
Okay, so I believe you know what PDO is doing.
Yes, it's a OOP approach to the regular MySQL queries. It has prepare statements, if I'm not mistaken, and it's much more secure. It's much more of an object-oriented programming approach on the queries.
Okay, and as you mentioned, we have entities. So
yes.
in Symfony, Doctrine is managing the entities. Is that correct?
Yes, an entity, if we generally speak about it, it's an, let me see how to put it in words. It's an abstract concept that's typically represented by a table in a database schema.
This is what I wanted to hear. So what is the difference? What is the relation between the PDO and the doctrine? Do you know what is the relation?
The relation?
There is a relation.
PDO and doctrine. If I'm not mistaken, using doctrine, you can, using annotations, not the attributes, using annotations, you can define how an entity is created in the database, if I'm not mistaken. You can create the tables using doctrines annotations.
Yes, that's correct, but the answer that I was looking is doctrine is using PDO to connect the databases. This is the only relation between these two. And I think I'm done. Thank you so much for your time and answers. Igor, the floor is yours.
Okay, I think not for now, because now we are moving to the feedback stage where, Raul, if you have any questions so far, and Mehmet, you can share your feedback on Raul's answers, maybe suggestions on improvement, where, you know, weak sides, strong sides, where he needs, you know, to dive deeper to improve his knowledge and so on. So Raul, maybe you have any questions so far?
Yes, I can say as a feedback, it was great talking with you, Mehmet. There were really nice and really interesting questions. Indeed, some really need more preparation, more working on the specific field. What I can say is that indeed, programming needs to be learned, like it needs to be practiced every day, every time. And that's how I and everyone else can get better in this domain. And what else can I say? It was a pleasure speaking with you. It was really great. The questions, like how the level increased from a simple question like debating over that subject, and increasing the level and the complexity of the question. And hopefully I can put all this knowledge and all this newly founded knowledge to work. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great to talking with you and hear these things from you. It was also a pleasure for me to have you here. So as you mentioned, I was trying to increase the hardness of the questions to understand what is the how much do you know actually about the technology? And as you hear the next question, also you will see what I know and what I can improve. So this is the strategy that I would like to do, and I believe this showed you which level you are at, and I believe you will fix any problem if you solve. So what I would like to say as a review is, I believe you are a good developer, a junior developer, and at some point you were stuck, but I believe I asked tricky questions to to make you confused. So yeah, I think this is for general review. Specifically, I suggest you to learn the fundamentals in detail. For example, the TCP and HTTP, what is the difference? Yeah, of course, for maybe 3 or 4 years from the beginning, you will not need anything about TCP or HTTP or the difference, but by time you will see you need something extra to manage your work. And at the same time, as I said, the fundamentals, I was not satisfied about the answer. What was the difference? What is the difference between Apache and Nginx? I was looking for a better answer, and at the same time, about the Git, what is the difference between merge and rebase? You remember the question?
Yes.
And I was also looking for a better answer for that question. And the other parts are I am really satisfied about the answers. Thank you so much for that. I think that's all from me. If you have any specific, if you want to tell me a specific review for any topic, please tell me, or I will give you a speech to Igor.
Yeah, I can say that I'm thankful for this interview and for those parts that indeed were not that satisfying as an answer. I think, for example, in Git, everything will be learned better as I will be on the field working 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, and encountering these problems in real life scenarios. Then indeed, for the next interviews, I will have a strong foundation knowing, yes, this you can do if you have any conflict or you will have anything else. And yes, related to Nginx, Apache, also there, I really have to read and improve a lot better.
Okay.
Okay, perfect, guys. I really appreciate your time today and your dedication. It was really nice to saw this. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this call, and that's all for today. It was nice to see you today, and have a good day.
Thanks so much.
Likewise.